She agreed to marry a handicapped millionaire, but the wedding vows unmasked the truth. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Today's story is titled, She Agreed to Marry a Handicapped Millionaire, but the Wedding Vows Unmasked the Truth. Now, let us return to our main character. Rain drizzled over the gates of Westbridge Private Hospital, the night air sharp with the smell of wet asphalt and pine. Under the dim streetlight, Lena Moore stood frozen, her thin coat soaked through, clutching a folder of unpaid medical bills. Her mother's treatments had drained everything. Rent was overdue. And now, the hospital where she worked as a night nurse had just laid her off. From behind her came the low hum of an approaching motor. A sleek black car rolled to a stop beside her. The back door opened, and a man's voice measured, calm, commanding broke the silence. "Miss Moore, please get in. I will explain everything inside." Inside the car, the glow from the dashboard lights revealed a face she recognized from newspapers and charity billboards, the reclusive millionaire, Ethan Ward, heir to Ward Industries. He sat in a custom wheelchair, shoulders squared, his hands steady on the armrests despite the tremor in his fingers. Lena hesitated, her heart pounding. "Why would someone like you want to meet me?" Ethan's gaze was steady, unreadable. "Because you are the only nurse who refused to take money from my brother to keep quiet after the accident. You have integrity. I need someone like you." He slid a cream-colored envelope toward her. Inside was a legal document, stamped and signed. "Marry me for 6 months," he said, his voice low but deliberate. "You will receive full coverage for your mother's medical bills, plus compensation that will secure your future. This is purely a contract, no emotions, no expectations." Lena's breath caught. The words sounded unreal, almost cruel. "You are asking me to marry you out of pity?" "Out of necessity," Ethan replied. "My board demands a stable image before I regain control of the company. A wife by my side will silence them." The rain drummed harder against the roof of the car. For a long moment, she could hear nothing but her own heartbeat. 6 months. Enough time to save her mother. Enough to keep a roof over their heads. "If I agree," she whispered, "what happens after 6 months?" "We sign a quiet annulment. You walk away free. No strings attached." Lena looked at the contract again, the neat black ink spelling out her price for dignity. Her reflection on the car window looked like a stranger's wet hair clinging to her cheeks, eyes tired but still burning with something she could not name. She closed the folder. "Fine. I will marry you, Mr. Ward. But understand this, I do not fake feelings. I am not a decoration for your image." For the first time, Ethan's lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. "Good. I am not looking for decoration. I am looking for honesty." The driver started the engine. Outside, the rain blurred the world into streaks of silver and gray. As they drove toward the Ward estate, Lena stared out the window, her mind spiraling between fear and resolve. Somewhere beneath the luxury, beneath the cold offer, she sensed something else in Ethan's eyes, something broken, hidden, and deeply human. And though she told herself this marriage was nothing but a transaction, a part of her knew that once vows were spoken, nothing would stay fake forever. The next morning, a silver sedan pulled through the wrought iron gates of the Ward estate. The place looked less like a home and more like a museum: marble floors, towering columns, and walls lined with portraits of men who never smiled. Lena Moore stepped out of the car, clutching her small suitcase. The chill in the air carried the faint scent of rain-soaked roses. A housekeeper greeted her with a polite bow. "Mrs. Ward," she said softly. The title made Lena's stomach twist. She was not a wife, not yet, just a signature on a piece of paper that still smelled of ink and fear. Inside, the grand hall swallowed her whole. A chandelier glittered overhead, its light scattering across the polished floor. Ethan waited at the far end, in his wheelchair, wearing a gray tailored suit that matched the calm precision in his expression. "Good morning," he said. "Did you sleep well?" "Barely," she admitted. "You will get used to this place. Breakfast is ready." The dining room stretched longer than the entire apartment Lena had lived in. A single vase of white lilies stood between them on the table. Silverware clinked softly as Ethan cut his toast with careful, almost mechanical grace. He moved his hands with discipline, but Lena could not ignore the small tremor in his right wrist. "You live alone here?" she asked quietly. "Alone is safer," he replied. "People talk less when they do not have to care." His voice was steady, but there was an undertone of exhaustion, like someone who had been guarding himself for far too long. After breakfast, his lawyer arrived to finalize the details. Lena sat beside Ethan in the study, her fingers tightening around the pen. The contract listed 3 clear rules. 1. Maintain appearances in public. 2. Attend 5 company events as Mrs. Ward. 3. Keep his medical condition confidential. When she finished signing, Ethan placed his hand over hers for a brief moment. His skin was warm, his grip firm. "This is not a cage, Lena," he said softly. "If at any point you want out, you walk away. No questions." She nodded, unsure whether that made her feel freer or more trapped. Later that afternoon, the housekeeper led her to a guest room that overlooked the estate's private lake. The sunlight glittered on the water like broken glass. She unpacked slowly, placing her mother's photo on the bedside table. The smile in the picture gave her courage. As evening fell, a gentle knock came on the door. Ethan's voice, calm as ever, called through the wood. "Dinner is at 7. It will be our first as husband and wife." The words sent a strange shiver through her. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror, the plain dress, the uncertain eyes. Wife. It still sounded foreign. At dinner, the silence between them was heavy but not cruel. Ethan asked about her mother, about the small town she came from. When she spoke of her nursing days, his eyes softened in a way that startled her. "You still believe in saving people," he said. "Someone has to," she answered. A faint smile touched his lips. "Then perhaps this arrangement will save us both." Outside, rain began again, tapping against the tall windows. For the first time, Lena noticed the wheelchair beside him was not automatic. It required effort, muscle, control. His fingers flexed against the wheel rims. The tremor had steadied. That night, lying awake in the unfamiliar room, she thought about his words. He had said the marriage was only business, but something in his gaze at dinner told a different story. Maybe it was loneliness, maybe curiosity, or maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something neither of them had planned for. 3 days later, the marriage became official. The ceremony was held in the Ward family's private chapel, quiet, perfumed with white lilies and old wood. Only a lawyer, a notary, and 2 witnesses from the company were present. No music, no guests, no family. Lena Moore stood beside Ethan Ward, her palms cold despite the warmth of the candles. The minister's voice echoed softly through the stone arches. "Do you, Ethan Ward, take this woman?" Ethan's eyes met hers, steady, unreadable. "I do." "Do you, Lena Moore?" Her throat felt dry. She hesitated for half a breath, then whispered, "I do." When the words were spoken, something in the air shifted. The ring, a thin platinum band, slid onto her finger. The sound of the minister's final blessing faded into silence. Ethan turned toward her. "Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Ward." He smiled politely, but his eyes carried the same loneliness she had seen in the car that night. Outside, rain still misted the air. The limousine waited to take them back to the estate. Through the tinted glass, the world blurred into grays and golds. Lena stared at the city lights, wondering what she had just stepped into, a promise or a prison. When they arrived, the mansion seemed different, colder. Ethan disappeared into his study, leaving her alone in the marble hallway. The ticking of a distant clock echoed against the high ceilings. Hours passed. Unable to sleep, Lena wandered down the corridor. Her steps led her to a closed door, the one room she had never seen. It was slightly ajar. Inside, faint piano notes drifted out, hesitant and haunting. She pushed the door open. Ethan sat at a grand piano, his wheelchair positioned perfectly before the keys. His hands trembled slightly as he played, but the melody was beautiful, sad, deliberate, alive. He stopped when he noticed her reflection in the polished surface of the instrument. "Could not sleep either?" he asked quietly. "No," she admitted. "I did not know you played." "I used to," he said, looking down at his hands. "Before the accident." He pressed another key, the sound fragile and pure. "It helps me remember that not everything broken is useless." Lena moved closer. What exactly happened that night? He hesitated, then answered, a car crash. The papers called it an accident. I know better. The brakes were tampered with. Her breath caught. Someone tried to kill you? Ethan's jaw tightened. Someone wanted my company, my trust, maybe even my life. I lost movement in my legs that night. I lost my father 2 months later, and since then, I trust no one. Silence filled the room. The candle beside the piano flickered, throwing shadows across his face. So this marriage, she said softly, it is a shield. Exactly, he replied. A convenient illusion to keep the wolves quiet. Lena's heart twisted. And what am I to you, Ethan? A name on paper? He looked at her then, the music fading between them. At first, yes, but you speak to me as if I am still a man, not a patient, not a story for the press. You make me feel visible again. The honesty in his tone disarmed her. For the first time, she saw not a millionaire, but a man scarred and human. I did not marry you to fix you, she said. I married you to survive, but maybe we can both do a little more than survive. His lips curved into the faintest smile. Maybe. The next morning, the household buzzed with quiet preparation. Ethan's assistant brought in an itinerary of corporate events. Their first public appearance as a married couple would be a charity gala, an evening designed to test how believable their union was. In the days that followed, Lena was fitted for dresses, coached on etiquette, and shown how to navigate the world that now called her Mrs. Ward. She practiced walking beside Ethan's wheelchair, learning how to slow her pace without making it obvious. Each evening they dined together. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence. Slowly, the lines between contract and connection began to blur. One night, as she helped him reach a book on the upper shelf of the study, her hand brushed his shoulder. He froze, not in pain, but in something deeper. You do not need to keep pretending you are fine all the time, she said softly. Pretending is easier than explaining, he murmured. Then do not explain, she said. Just be. He looked up at her, and for a heartbeat, neither spoke. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. The lights flickered, and in that fleeting moment, between the echo of thunder and the whisper of their breath, something unspoken passed between them, a fragile understanding that this arrangement was no longer as simple as ink on paper. Later that night, when she returned to her room, Lena found a folded note slipped under her door. In Ethan's sharp handwriting, it read, Tomorrow, we face the world together. Thank you for making it feel a little less empty. Ugh. She held the note against her chest, a small, involuntary smile forming through the uncertainty. Whatever tomorrow would bring pity, judgment, or curiosity, she would walk beside him. Not as a contract, not as a duty, but as someone who had begun, despite every warning, to care. The night of the charity gala arrived, and the Ward estate buzzed with quiet tension. Staff hurried through the halls carrying garment bags and camera equipment. For the first time since the wedding, Lena Moore felt the full weight of what it meant to be Mrs. Ward. The contract might have begun as survival, but tonight it would become a performance before the entire city. Inside her dressing room, a stylist pinned her hair into soft waves and adjusted the pale silver gown that shimmered under the light. She barely recognized herself in the mirror. Behind her reflection, Ethan appeared in a dark, tailored suit, his wheelchair polished to perfection, his posture impeccable. Are you nervous? He asked. A little, she admitted. You? Always, he said, but no one ever notices. His voice carried a warmth that surprised her. He extended a small velvet box toward her. Inside lay a delicate diamond bracelet. Consider it armor, he said. Every warrior needs one. She smiled faintly and let him clasp it around her wrist. You have a strange way of giving courage. I find it works, he said with a soft grin. At the gala, flashes from cameras painted the red carpet in bursts of white light. Reporters shouted questions as Ethan guided his wheelchair beside her, his hand resting lightly on her arm. Lena's heart pounded, but she forced a calm smile. Inside, chandeliers glowed like constellations, and the sound of violins floated through the air. People turned to look, some with curiosity, others with disbelief. Whispers followed them. That is Ethan Ward's new wife, someone murmured. The nurse. Can you believe it? They took their seats at the front table. A few minutes later, a man approached a broad-shouldered investor with a smug grin. Ethan, I almost did not recognize you, the man said, his tone half joking. And this must be your companion. The implication stung, but before Ethan could respond, Lena rose from her seat. Her voice was calm, but her words cut through the laughter around them. Actually, I am his wife, she said, and I would appreciate it if you addressed him with the respect he deserves. The table fell silent. The man flushed, muttered an apology, and walked away. Ethan watched her quietly, a flicker of surprise softening his eyes. You did not have to defend me, he said. You would have done the same, she replied. Perhaps, he murmured, but not as gracefully. Hen. As the night continued, they moved together as if the world around them had faded. She laughed at his dry humor. He listened as she spoke about her mother's slow recovery. Their conversation flowed with an ease that felt alarmingly real. Later, during a pause in the music, the master of ceremonies invited Ethan to the stage to make a speech. He wheeled forward, his voice clear and measured. Some of us lose more than we ever thought we could, he said. But sometimes, what is lost makes room for something stronger. When he glanced toward Lena, the crowd followed his gaze. For a brief, unguarded moment, everyone in the room saw not a broken man, but one reborn. After the applause faded, Ethan returned to their table. He leaned closer, his voice almost a whisper. You handled yourself perfectly tonight. I could not have asked for a better partner. You mean a better actress? She teased. No, he said, his tone softer now. A better person. Outside, the night rain began again, tapping against the ballroom windows. For the first time, Lena did not mind. She felt steady beside him, no longer a stranger playing a role, but a woman standing exactly where she was meant to be. And as the orchestra began another song, Ethan reached for her hand. The warmth of his touch said more than any contract ever could. The following week, the story of the gala spread through every business magazine in the city. Photos of Ethan Ward and his new wife dominated the headlines. The reclusive millionaire returns with a mysterious bride. For the first time in years, the Ward name was spoken with curiosity rather than pity. Ethan stayed calm through the noise, but Lena could see the exhaustion behind his composed smile. He had meetings almost every day, and when he returned home at night, his hands trembled from fatigue. Yet he never complained. One evening, Lena found him alone in the library. The fireplace burned low, casting amber light across the shelves. Ethan sat with a stack of reports on his lap, his wheelchair positioned near the window. You should rest, she said gently. If I rest, someone else will make the decisions for me, he replied. Then let me help. He looked up, surprised. You would read quarterly reports for me? Maybe not the numbers, she said with a smile. But I can make tea and keep you company. That made him laugh, a quiet, unguarded laugh that broke through the cold air. He watched her as she poured the tea, the steam curling between them. When was the last time you laughed? She asked softly. I do not remember, he said. Maybe before the crash. Then we will start counting again from tonight. The silence that followed was warm, filled with the soft crackle of fire. Something fragile but undeniable had begun to take root between them. Days turned into weeks. They attended more events together, and each time, the distance between them seemed to shrink. Lena no longer felt like a hired companion. She felt like someone who belonged. But beneath the calm surface, something darker stirred. She began noticing strange details, phone calls that ended abruptly when she entered the room, letters marked confidential, and a shadow of tension that lingered whenever Ethan spoke with his younger cousin, Eric Ward. One afternoon, she overheard raised voices from Ethan's study. You are losing control, Ethan, Eric shouted. This marriage stunt will not fix the damage you have done. It already has, Ethan said, his tone icy. And you will stay out of my way. The door slammed, and Eric stormed past her, his glare sharp enough to cut. That night, Lena confronted Ethan. Why do you let him talk to you like that? Ethan sighed, because he owns 10% of the company and believes that gives him the right to everything else. And the accident? She asked carefully. Was he involved? Ethan's expression hardened. I cannot prove it. Not yet. The truth settled between them like heavy air. For the first time, Lena understood how much danger might still be hiding behind the polished walls of this life. Later, when she brought him his evening tea, she noticed his hands trembling again. Without thinking, she knelt beside him and placed her hand over his. You do not have to carry all of it alone, she whispered. Ethan's voice was low, almost a confession. I forgot what it felt like to be touched without pity. Lena met his eyes, steady and sincere. Then let this be your reminder. For a long moment, neither moved. The firelight flickered across their faces, turning shadows into something almost tender. Then Ethan pulled back slightly, clearing his throat. Tomorrow we meet the board, he said quietly. They will expect perfection. Then we will give them that, she replied. That night, as she walked back to her room, Lena realized her pulse was racing. She told herself it was nerves, but deep down, she knew it was something far more dangerous. Because somewhere between the vows and the lies, her heart had stopped following the contract and started following him. The morning of the board meeting arrived cold and gray. Clouds hung low over the city skyline as Lena Moore helped Ethan Ward adjust his tie. The tension in the room was thick, the kind that made every breath feel measured. You look ready, she said quietly. I hope so, Ethan replied. Today will tell them whether they still believe in me or whether they will tear everything apart. Lena smoothed the edge of his suit jacket, forcing a smile. Then let us make them believe. At Ward Industries headquarters, cameras flashed as they entered the lobby. Ethan moved through the sea of reporters with calm precision, his wheelchair gliding across the marble floor. Lena walked beside him, her hand resting lightly on the chair's handle, not as a helper, but as an equal partner. Inside the boardroom, 12 executives sat waiting, their faces polished but cold. Eric Ward was among them, his smirk sharp as a blade. The meeting began with reports and financial projections. Numbers filled the air like static. Ethan spoke clearly, his confidence returning with every word. When one of the directors questioned his physical capability, he met the comment with quiet steel. My body changed, he said, but not my mind, and certainly not my will. The company was built on resilience. I am still that foundation. Murmurs rippled across the table. Even those who doubted him seemed to pause. Eric leaned forward. And what about your wife? A nurse, was she not? How convenient that she appeared just in time to save your image. Lena's pulse quickened. Ethan's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, she stood. I am not here for appearances, she said evenly. I am here because your chairman asked me to stand beside him and I chose to. I have seen him work harder than anyone in this room. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourselves why. The room went silent. Eric's smirk vanished. Ethan turned his head slightly, and for the first time, pride flickered in his eyes. After the meeting, they left the building to a chorus of camera shutters. In the car, Lena exhaled. Was I too harsh? She asked. No, Ethan said. You were perfect. He reached for her hand. It was the first time he had done so without hesitation. His fingers were steady now, warm and sure. That evening, back at the estate, the rain returned. The lake shimmered under flashes of lightning. Lena found Ethan by the window, watching the storm. You are quiet, she said. I keep thinking about what you said in there, he replied. You stood up to them like it was nothing. It was not nothing, she said. It was you. Ethan turned toward her, his voice low. You are changing everything, Lena. Before you, I lived like I was waiting for life to end. Now I find myself wanting more. She felt her chest tighten. More of what? He met her eyes. More of this. More of you. The thunder rumbled, closer this time. They stood inches apart, the air between them electric. Ethan, she whispered. We said no feelings. Then maybe we said the wrong thing, he murmured. For a long heartbeat, time stopped. His hand rose, slow and uncertain, until it brushed against her cheek. The warmth of his touch made her breath catch. But before either could say another word, the lights flickered and went out. A moment later, the faint glow of security lamps revealed a shadow moving outside the window, a figure standing near the gates, watching. Ethan's voice hardened. Eric has been pushing too far. He will not stop until he takes everything. Lena's heart pounded. Then we will not let him. Ethan nodded once, determination cutting through the fear. Tomorrow, I will show him the truth. No more secrets. Ender. Outside, thunder rolled again. But inside, something else had begun, a quiet promise that their fight was no longer just about survival. It was about reclaiming everything that had been stolen from them, and maybe about protecting the love that neither of them had meant to find. The next morning dawned with a heavy stillness that felt unnatural. The air inside the Ward estate was thick, almost watchful. Lena Moore woke early, her mind replaying Ethan's words from the night before. No more secrets. She found him already in the study, dressed in a black suit, eyes fixed on the stack of documents spread across the desk. The tension in his shoulders told her he had not slept. "The board will meet again today," he said. "Eric requested an emergency session. He claims he has proof that I am unfit to lead." "Proof?" Lena asked. "Photographs, lies, anything that will make the headlines turn against me." She stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You are not alone in this anymore, Ethan." He looked up, and for the first time, the mask of control slipped. "I know, and that is what scares me most." Hours later, they arrived at Ward Industries. The press had gathered outside, their shouts echoing off the marble walls. Ethan ignored them, his jaw set, but Lena could see the storm behind his calm expression. Inside the boardroom, Eric stood at the head of the table, confident and smug. "Before we begin," Eric said smoothly, "I think everyone should see what our noble chairman has been hiding." He pressed a button on a remote. A projector flickered to life, displaying photographs across the screen. Lena and Ethan in the garden, at dinner, her hand brushing his. To the untrained eye, the images looked staged, intimate in a way meant to humiliate. Gasps filled the room. Eric smirked. A marriage of convenience built on deception. He paid her to play the perfect wife while he hides behind pity. Lena's stomach dropped. Ethan said nothing. For a moment, the room buzzed with murmurs and accusation. Then Ethan rolled his chair forward, his voice calm but sharp as glass. "You are right about one thing, Eric," he said. "This began as a contract, but unlike you, I do not pay people to pretend loyalty. Lena stood by me when no one else did. And as for deception, perhaps the board should know where the missing funds from the Asia project went." The color drained from Eric's face. "What are you implying?" Ethan slid a folder across the table. "I am not implying. I am proving." Inside were copies of financial transfers money rerouted through shell accounts under Eric's name. The directors leaned forward, whispering among themselves. "These are false," Eric stammered. "You cannot prove." "I already did," Ethan interrupted. "Our auditors confirmed it last night. The crash that nearly killed me was no accident, Eric. It was your first attempt to erase me." The silence that followed was absolute. Then the chairman of the board spoke quietly. "Mr. Eric Ward, you are hereby suspended pending investigation." Security moved in. Eric's composure shattered as he shouted, "You will regret this, Ethan!" But his voice faded as the doors closed behind him. Ethan exhaled slowly, his hands trembling against the armrest. Lena reached for him, steadying the wheelchair. "It is over," she whispered. "Not yet," he said, his voice low. "There is one more thing I need to do." He turned toward the board. "My recovery is not complete, but my will is. I will resume leadership effective immediately, and I will rebuild this company with transparency, starting today." Applause broke out, cautious but genuine. When they left the building, reporters swarmed again, but this time the flashes felt different, less cruel, almost admiring. Lena walked beside him, her hand resting lightly on his. Back in the car, Ethan leaned back, his eyes closing for a moment. "I could not have done this without you." "You could have," she said softly. "You just forgot that you were still strong." He opened his eyes, meeting hers. "Maybe I did, but you reminded me." Outside, sunlight finally pierced the gray clouds. For the first time in months, the city looked alive again. And in that quiet moment, Lena realized that what began as survival had turned into something far greater, something that neither of them could deny any longer. 2 weeks passed after the confrontation at the board meeting, and the world around Ethan Ward slowly began to shift. The press that once questioned his ability now called him the chairman who stood again. Ward Industries stocks climbed, and his name filled the headlines not with scandal, but with resilience. Yet inside the estate, everything felt strangely quiet. Lena Moore noticed at first the way Ethan moved through the house with a calm she could not read. He still worked long hours, but his eyes carried something new, something softer. One evening, she found him in the conservatory overlooking the lake. The last light of dusk spilled through the glass ceiling, painting the floor in gold and violet. Ethan stood near the piano, no wheelchair in sight, leaning slightly on a polished cane. Lena froze at the doorway. "You are standing." He smiled faintly. Not for long, but long enough. Her eyes filled with tears before she could stop them. "Why did you not tell me?" "Because I wanted you to see it," he said, voice quiet but steady. To see that what you believed in was not just a dream. Ugh. He walked toward her slowly, each step deliberate, each breath controlled. When he reached her, he held out a small envelope embossed with the Ward Foundation seal. "What is this?" she asked. "An invitation," he replied. "Tomorrow is the inauguration of the Ward Foundation. It is built for medical assistance and scholarships in your mother's name." Her lips parted in disbelief. "You did this for me?" "No," he said. "I did it because of you. You reminded me what real strength looks like." The next day, the ballroom of the new foundation overflowed with guests, reporters, and donors. Banners of white and blue hung from the ceiling. Cameras flashed as Ethan took the stage, standing on his own for the first time in public. The crowd erupted into applause. "A few months ago," Ethan began, "I was told that my life would never be the same. They were right, but not for the reasons they thought. I met someone who showed me that strength is not measured by power, but by compassion." He turned slightly, his gaze finding Lena in the front row. "This foundation is a promise to help others stand again, just as she helped me." Lena's heart swelled. Every camera turned toward her, but she barely noticed. The applause thundered, but all she saw was him no longer the broken man in a wheelchair, but someone reborn. After the ceremony, Ethan found her backstage, away from the crowd. The air smelled of fresh flowers and new beginnings. He reached into his pocket and took out a small velvet box, the same one that once held her wedding ring. "I kept this," he said, opening it to reveal the platinum band. "At first, it was part of a deal, but now, it is something else entirely." Lena's breath caught. "Ethan, you once said you do not fake feelings," he said, stepping closer. "Neither do I. The contract ended the day you made me want to live again." He took her hand, placing the ring back on her finger. "No more signatures, no more rules. Just truth." Tears blurred her vision. "And what truth is that?" "That I love you," he whispered, "and I am done pretending otherwise." Outside, the music swelled as the guests celebrated the new foundation. But inside that quiet corner, time seemed to pause. Lena smiled through her tears. "Then let us start again," she said. "This time for real." He nodded, his fingers tightening gently around hers. And for the first time, their vows, unwritten and unspoken, finally felt real. A month later, spring had settled over the Ward estate, soft and golden. The garden that once felt like a cage now bloomed with roses, and the lake reflected a sky so clear it looked almost unreal. The world outside had quieted, but inside, everything felt alive again. Lena Moore stood near the window of the glass pavilion, smoothing the folds of her simple ivory dress. It was not the designer gown from their first wedding. There were no reporters, no signatures, no contract. Only the faint sound of piano music drifting through the air and the steady beat of her heart. Behind her, Ethan Ward approached, walking slowly but proudly without the cane. His steps were not perfect, each one still careful, but they were his own. When she turned, the look in his eyes erased every shadow that had ever haunted the house. "You are early," she said softly. "I have waited long enough," he replied, smiling. "I am not risking another delay." They stood before a small gathering, just a few close friends, the household staff who had become family, and Lena's mother, now healthy and radiant. The sun filtered through the glass roof, catching the dust in the air like gold. The officiant began the ceremony, but this time, no one needed to pretend. "Ethan Ward," he said, "do you take this woman, not by contract or convenience, but by choice and love?" Ethan's voice did not tremble. "With everything I am," he said. "And Lena Moore, do you take this man not by duty or desperation, but by heart and trust?" Lena's eyes glistened. "I do," she whispered. When he slipped the same platinum ring onto her finger, she realized it no longer symbolized debt or survival. It meant freedom. Freedom to love, to stand, to begin again. As they exchanged vows, Ethan's hand brushed her cheek, and she leaned into his touch. "You once told me I made you visible again," she said. "But you gave me something too. You taught me that love is not weakness. It is the proof that we are still alive." Ethan smiled, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "Then let us live." The guests applauded as they sealed their vows with a kiss that was both tender and certain. Outside, the wind carried the sound of laughter across the gardens, blending with the soft rustle of the trees. Later that evening, when the sun dipped behind the hills, Lena and Ethan walked together along the lake path where their story had first begun. The water shimmered beneath the lanterns, and the reflection of the estate glowed like a dream finally made real. "Do you ever think about how it all started?" Lena asked. "Every day," he said. "A storm, a contract, and a stranger who refused to look away." She smiled. "And now?" "Now," he said, tightening his arm around her. "I am exactly where I was always meant to be." They stopped beneath the willow tree, its branches swaying gently above them. The night air was cool, filled with the scent of rain and roses. Lena looked up at him, her voice soft but sure. "No more pretending?" "Never again," Ethan answered. They stood there for a long moment, listening to the quiet ripple of the lake. Somewhere behind them, the lights of the foundation glowed, carrying their shared promise into the world. And as the stars began to appear, the story that once started as a contract ended as something far more powerful, a love built not on circumstance, but on choice. Because in the end, what began as an arrangement between a broken man and a desperate woman became a vow that no paper could define. It became the proof that even after loss, after lies, and after fear, love, when it is real, always finds a way to stand.